Hello, 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 friends. Nicholas here with DIVO-Ted Talks, Devoted Talks, where we take ancient wisdom and practices through a modern lens and experience to help you and those you love in suffering in your personal and greater worlds alike. And yeah, I hit record and I was like, I don't even know what I'm going to talk about. And you know what? That's a great thing. And before you hit stop, just know that most of my rambling eventually gets to a strong point and it's usually quite appropriate and apropos for the moment. So if you feel in your gut to disconnect now, so be it. But I think if you found it in the first place, it might be something that'll speak to you. So, my friends, I talked in the episode prior to this about, getting a haircut and getting newness and freshness and how, all systems to stay healthy need to have new in, old out, right? All living beings actually have to do that. But also, you get the oil change on your car, so you need new oil after you drain out the old that has been utilized and served its purpose. So it's very similar in the way, even with our things that are non-biological, but because of Ayurveda, we think mostly in terms of the biological, but our interaction with the non-biological items are, the physical world are also engaged in qualities, right? So Ayurveda encompasses all of them as well. But for us in particular, we're looking mostly towards healing and resolution of either stress or lack of well being. And therefore, we are focusing on the aspects of Ayurveda that apply directly to that. But our interaction with the world at all levels, of all densities, of all different expressions, is going to be directly influencing our health and the level of our thriving. So, that being said, how are you interacting with your world? What have you been doing? Do you look at things and dislike them? Do you look at things and wish they were different? Do you look at things and appreciate them? Right? How are you interacting with your world? Because I guarantee that if you talk about how you're feeling day in and day out, generally speaking, I bet I can guess what it is you're feeling or thinking when you're looking at things. Not to say that I'm thinking about, thinking for you or that I know better than you. It's just that I have interacted with so many people over the years and had so many human experiences myself that I am pretty keen and pretty cognizant of what's happening when I see it and or hear it. And with that in mind, I would like to talk today. If you're feeling anything less than stellar, if you're feeling anything less than amazing, why? Right? And that's not to say that you're not going to have bad days, but it can feel good, or you can find relief in recognizing that today's not the day and taking what is needed then. And it doesn't have to be you on death's door to warrant you staying home or relaxing or staying, away from things in your life that cause you more stress, right? It is a constant flux of up and down. And depending on how you're interacting with your environment and or the situations that you're consistently finding yourself in will dictate how you're feeling most of the time, right? If you are agitated, then you're going to be agitated in all things, just by little things in your life, right? Like, think about how impossible it is with somebody who doesn't like their job, right? It's hard to be around them because it consumes them, because it just takes over the fullness of who they are, because they spend so much time doing that. And so that goes back to my original point. Why, if you're not feeling great, would you keep doing those things? And so people who love their life and love the things about their life are generally happy and enjoyable people, right? And that's not to say that people aren't going to have bad times and they're not going to have struggles and they're not going to have oscillations in the way that they feel, but it is to say that if you're unhappy, there could be a lot of things that are causing that, but most importantly, it's usually choosing against your best and or self-interests. And I was talking to my good friend. We've known each other for years and years and years. We dated 20 years ago, um, more than 20 years ago. And we're still really good friends because we really just get each other. But most of all, we are energetically tied in ways that fill each other's cups. And we don't always talk and, we go through cycles. But, I told him, I was like, look, you're dating somebody and I just get a weird vibe about them. But what I will say is that if your gut is telling you that you should test it out, then yeah, you should. You should absolutely go test it out. But I was like, but if you spend one more weekend with him and he makes you feel anything less than stellar, then I'm cutting you off, meaning I'm not going to console you. But it was just funny, you know, we made a joke of it, but it really was like, look, if you come back and you're not feeling great about this guy one more time, I'm going to cut you off and tell you, it's stupid that you keep going back and expecting something different, right? But sometimes we get so enamored with the idea of what it could be or enamored with the idea of what we want it to be that we don't often see it for what it is, right? We are masterful at creating worlds, not just real worlds, but actual imaginary worlds in our mind and head. And actually, I would argue that everything is in your head, right? Because you're interpreting everything in your life, whether it's physical or non-physical, that is creating an experience for you. You're interpreting it. And in that interpretation, you are creating that world. And if you can create it one way, you can create it another as well. So all that being said, back to the main point. Why would you choose to be involved in a life that is less than stellar? Like, there are circumstances that in the moment require hard work, that require your attention, that require your effort. And they may not be the most pleasurable, but if we keep focusing on the problem, which is this isn't pleasurable and I don't like this and this isn't good for me, but we're not changing it to the solution, which is figuring out how to move, figuring out how to get out of a situation, figuring out how to change it, that should feel good. But to continually feel bad and keep returning to it because you think you have to, or worse, you think you deserve it, that can be very defeating and then create this personality that is completely informed by dissatisfaction. And I just don't think that we have to do that. So if this hits you and you feel like you don't know where to turn or where to go, I'm so happy to talk with you. divo@divowellness.com. Reach out and reference this episode whenever you get this, because I know it can be hard, but oftentimes it's just what we've been focusing on that is preventing us from seeing what is possible. And so if we know that fresh needs to come in, then why aren't we continually doing that? And if you didn't know that that was what was necessary, here's your sign. Get something new, get something fresh. That doesn't necessarily mean getting rid of an old boyfriend and getting a new one, but it might be the answer depending on what we're talking about, right? I'm never going to poo-poo or, decide for you what you need to do for your life. I can only offer suggestions contextually speaking based on the information that's available to me. And I think that's a reasonable and a respectable position to take. And I would respect anybody talking to me about my life who would offer that up in such a way. So new, bring new in, do the new, right? The new is what helps sustain us. We don't just eat one time and live our whole life. We eat continually. We bring new in. We bring in fresh to replace the old. We get rid of the waste in the morning and then we spend the day feeding it. And then we get rid of the waste in the morning the next day, right? It's a cycle. There are spiritual and mental equivalencies to this process. But dare to be wise, sapere aude, and figure out what that is for you. And then I know for sure you will be well and be free.